started while people are joining. So, hi everyone, JT here from No Code Founders. Welcome to another NCF webinar. This week we're looking at Web3 with Bildr. You know why you're here. I don't need to tell you, but let's end this poll as well. So, interestingly, 27% have used Bildr before. I'm not going to take up too much time because we've got quite a lot to get through. We've got Mark from CEO of Bildr, and he's going to spend some time giving us a demo and walking us through Web3 application. Before we do that, let me just quickly run another poll to see. Web3 is this expanse that we all have different experiences in, and you know, I'm not particularly advanced in it, so it'd be good to see what kind of levels we're all at in terms of our experience. So let's see. Okay, interesting. Give another couple of seconds. So just while you're responding to that, just a couple of housekeeping things. We'll hopefully have a small session at the end for Q&A. But if you do have any questions as we go, feel free to drop them in the chat. We might have a chance to respond in the chat, or at the end, we can just field those questions to make sure that we can get through as many as possible. Also, next week, just an NCF announcement, we're running our first coffee chat. So it's going to be a kind of very casual networking session. If you're a pro member in NCF, you can come along and join and get to know each other. So that's next Tuesday. I'll drop that in the chat shortly. But let's just close up this poll. So there we go. 78% beginners, 11% intermediate, and 11% advanced. So I won't take any more time. I'm going to pass over to Mark, but do put any questions in the chat. And I'll pass over to you, Mark.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate everyone coming and joining and hanging out for a little bit. And that poll of Web3 experience is about what I'm used to seeing. And almost all these talks that we do, we end up having, the majority of people, it's either their first introduction to Web3 and NFTs and maybe even crypto in general in concepts. And so very used to that. But we can also get super technical if anyone is so inclined. So feel free to dive in at any level into questions. I am going to try to kind of cover all the bases today. So this talk that I give is called 0 to 1 in Web3. It's a really short talk. It's really about kind of defining what Web3 is, what decentralization is, and how we use it in products. So we couch the entire industry in utility and products, not in the speculative side of things. Now you can use Bildr and our Web3 products to create NFTs and have a whole speculative thing that you want to do. But from our perspective, this is about building. And one of the first questions in there about authentication is really the linchpin of that. And so we'll talk through all those details. So I'll go ahead and show my screen. We'll make sure we can see that. Jump in there. All right. Jonathan, you all right? Can you see the screen? Or Josh, can you see the screen? Cool. So first thing we'll do is just kind of go through some definitions. We'll talk about use cases for NFTs and for authentication using tokens, things like that. And then the second part, I'll dive into a demo of Bildr and different ways that you can use Bildr with Web3 to build out all kinds of Web3 backends and front ends and all kinds of fun stuff. In between, I'll stop there for questions. So that way, if there's any questions over the terminology or any of those beginner side of things, we'll go ahead and get those out of the way, and then we'll dive into the demo. So let's just get started. This is the first thing that I want people to try to visualize is how do you recognize the differences between the first era of the internet, what we call Web 1, the current or the last 20 years or so, 15, 20 years of the internet, which is Web 2, and then the new thing that's coming, right? The Web 3 side of things. And so I've heard a lot of different ways of describing this, and I actually added to this slide yesterday because there was a really good podcast on Bankless podcast. If you don't listen to Bankless, you should if you want to learn about crypto and Web3. And in particular, they had an episode 2 or 3 days ago, I think now, with Mark Magnuson and Chris Dixon. Chris runs their blockchain and Web3 side of things at A16Z. And they had a whole discussion on this. And these three, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, democratizing information, democratizing publishing, and democratizing ownership, that actually comes from Chris Dixon in that podcast. That was his way of defining it. A little more detailed way, in Web 1, you can think of it as this was run by individuals. So this was at the time whenever we would build our own computer, we would connect it up to our dial-up, and we would self-host our websites. And these websites were read-only, they were not interactive. This was about me publishing information out to the world, and other people could consume that information. So by nature, it was decentralized because there was no such thing as a data center or a hosting provider where you could just like put your code up there and it would work. You had to self-host. And so it was just by nature decentralized. If I took my site down, no one could access it anymore. There was no way for someone to get access to that. In Web 2, basically what happened was corporations came in and realized, wait, there's a huge opportunity here to gain audience and also to monetize in terms of a consumer product. And so that began a process of basically creating these data centers to get to scale. And with that, it created interactive platforms, which now we see as e-commerce and social media and all these different ways of interacting with websites and web apps and apps on your phones. Kind of see it all as the same thing. But in general, this was about democratizing publishing. So no longer do you need your own pre-home built computer and your own internet connection that's strong enough to support lots of users coming in it. You don't have to have any of that stuff. You can just run it all and publish it through someone else's services, right? So whether that's sending a tweet out or whether that's setting up a Shopify store, it's all about democratizing the ability to publish that content out for some purpose. Web 3 is about democratizing ownership. So building on those first two and not removing any of it, but democratizing the ownership of it. So the goal is that it's run by communities, run by the users, and owned by the users. And these are interactive platforms, but they're hosted on blockchains, decentralized, as opposed to being hosted on data centers. So this is the dream, this is the goal, right? And the same kind of skepticism that occurs right now of, well, blockchains can't scale, also occurred whenever we went from nothing to Web 1, and then went from Web 1 to Web 2. The concept of something of the scale of Amazon in 1994 on the web was just unheard of. It was just silly to think of it that way, that you could do that level of thing because the systems weren't in place, the technology wasn't in place. And so what we're seeing right now is this massive influx of smart people and technologists and people who want to create these solutions coming into Web3 to build out the infrastructure. So in terms of organization of what Web3 is, it's hard to pin it down, but at a broad level, it's the idea of running these interactive platforms by a community, and that they're hosted in a decentralized way, that you don't have a single source of failure or you don't have platform risk, basically. So if we take a step back from that and look at what we're trying to do as an industry, it's really about decentralization. And a broad, high-level definition of that, totally outside of the tech or Web3, is just about moving authority from a central source into a network. So that's, in general, that's a network of people. And you see this in different ways. Like you see it in corporations worldwide now. Rather than having one person who's in control of it, you have a check and balance where you have a board who can overrule the CEO, for instance, or you have a set of executives who make decisions together. So it's the same thing. At certain scales, you need certain power levels and you need distributed power levels. And the goal of decentralization is to basically take the entire authority and power into a network. And here's a really interesting example of that. I'm sure everyone has heard about Elon Musk attempting to buy Twitter. We'll see if it actually ends up going through or not. But I thought this was a really cool interchange that happened a couple like last month or a month and a half ago now. If you don't follow 6529, Punk 6529 on Twitter, and you're interested in Web3, you really should follow him or her. I don't know who that is actually. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl. But the statement made was, whether you're excited about him taking over Twitter or you're upset about it, that's really the point, is that you shouldn't have a feeling about that one way or the other, because really, if you're going to have a global internet messaging system, that should be outside of the purview of a single entity or a single person. It should be more like email, for instance. So email is a protocol layer, and there's all these different clients that sit on top of that protocol layer. And all the interchange that happens, like I can switch from one email provider to another email provider, and email still works. Like the protocol that Gmail uses underneath is the same protocol that any other email provider uses underneath. And so the concept here is, why isn't there an internet messaging service that's a similar type of thing that's underneath it? So that way you have 15 Twitter clients. And if, Twitter number one it gets purchased by Elon and you love that, then stick with it. But if you like the one that was created by somebody else or owned by somebody else, you can use that. And the messages can be interchanged between the different platforms because they all sit on top of the same protocol. So this is where you go from these concepts of platforms to the ideas of protocols that underpin them. And if you can make the protocol the power level, then you kind of remove all of this ability for a billionaire to come in and take it over, whether you love it or don't love it. It just removes that power play. So here's another way to look at it from Web 2 to Web 3. If you look at the three main pieces, you have hosting, business, and users. So in Web 2 hosting, you have centralized data centers. The goal in Web 3 is to decentralize that into blockchains. In business side of things, you have corporations. In the Web 3, you're decentralizing that into a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. We'll talk about autonomy in just a moment as well. And then in terms of users, you go from this pseudo-anonymous email address to a truly anonymous wallet address. So the goal is to take it to where you don't actually have to ever know who your customer is to do transactions with your customer, right? And your customer doesn't ever have to feel like their information is in your hands. It's in their hands. That's the goal there. So two more definitions here, and then one overarching thing. And then, so autonomous is this idea of self-governing. So when we're talking about a decentralized autonomous organization, all we're saying is something that is not centralized in terms of power and that is self-governing. So it's not controlled by an outside source. And then another term that's really important in the space that kind of explains a lot of sentiment in the space is this concept of self-sovereignty. So this is the Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility kind of concept, where you have this individual independence. And because of that, you have a whole bunch of power, but you also have full responsibility. So for instance, if you lose the keys to your wallet, you lost all the money and NFTs and whatever is in there, you lost it. And that's on you. There's no insurance that backs that up, right? So you have all the power, but you have all the responsibility as well. And this self-sovereignty idea is why you don't see too much too much empathy towards the people who, for instance, get scammed and lose their, $400,000 Bored Ape or whatever it is that they got scammed out of. You don't see a ton of empathy in the space for them, because everyone comes into it knowing if you're going to put something worth that much money into a wallet, you better be super careful about what you're doing with that wallet. And it's on you, right? So it creates this really interesting dynamic where it feels callous in a lot of ways, but that's just sort of what comes with that self-sovereignty. So this is the last definition here. This is my favorite definition of a decentralized web, and it was by one of the founders of WebTorrent. The reason I like this is because it talks about both layers. So it's a system of interconnected, independent, privately owned computers that work together to provide private, secure, and censorship-resistant access to information and services. Okay, so this is talking about, that underpinning layer, but also what it's doing is providing that secure information, right? The private, secure, censorship-resistant access to the information and the services. So you really need both layers there, this like protocol underneath, and then all the things that are getting built on top of it to create a full decentralized web. So there's a couple things that come out of this that are just like apparent whenever I talk about all these things, and they're apparent to anyone who sees the technology side of this stuff. There's big time technical limitations here, right? So blockchains do not scale in terms of number of transactions that can happen, the size of the data. It gets really, really costly, really, really fast if you want to do something like have an actual social network completely stored on chain. It's so expensive right now to do that. Even on layer 2 chains, it's just like not fast enough and not cheap enough yet. And then the other big hurdle is consumer realities. So this is, who all in the room already has a wallet, right? Of the majority of you who are beginners in the space, how many have a wallet? And how many have a wallet that interacts with almost all the sites that need to interact with them? And then beyond that, if you just even understanding the all these terms and all these different pieces, we've got to teach a lot of steps before we can get consumers up to speed. And if you really want a truly decentralized web, you need a decentralized a browser that can access decentralized assets. So right now, by default, Chrome doesn't give you access to these decentralized assets. You can't just type in mark0.eth and get to a website. There has to be another layer in between. So there's all these different pieces of user experience that have to come into play before we're going to get there. So right now we're in what we call Web 2.5. It's this middle ground where you're going to have things like Bildr coming into the fray, where we can offer this like best of both worlds kind of thing. So when we talk about authentication in a little bit, or connecting with your wallet, we do a Web 2.5 thing where you connect with your wallet, totally anonymous, but we create a Web 2 session. So that way we know that you are you, even though we don't know who you are, we know that you're you, right? And we can now present you with all the Web 2 fun things without having to have all the technology infrastructure in place yet that is going to come to make it truly decentralized. This is my favorite use case for Web3 at the moment. I think this is probably where most people will enter the space, is with NFTs and using those NFTs for funding and community. And if you think of this in terms of like 1,000 true fans, the Web2 ethos of if you can find 1,000 true fans to pay you $100 a month, you're now making 6 figures a year in US dollars. And you can basically live your life and do the thing you love to do with those 1,000 true fans. NFTs give an amazing ability to do that. And it's really a cool thing to see occur. Like when we started selling our Bildr Studio passes, we were amazed that people would like take the receipt, which is the image, right? The NFT image, and they would post it on social media and go, I got it, right? That's totally a different experience than someone like signing up with Stripe, putting in their credit card, and then, like, can you imagine someone taking the credit card receipt and like posting it to Twitter? That's basically what they're posting to Twitter, is the receipt of their purchase of the access to the tool that they just got into. But because they were sort of a part of creating it, in the Bildr Studio Pass, you can like re-roll it and you get to make the art yourself. And so you get to choose, you're basically choosing the colors and a little bit of the styling and things like that. So it kind of becomes part of you. And then whenever you enter our community with it, you have special access to special channels because you have one of those passes, or if you don't. And so it just breeds this community aspect that doesn't exist in traditional SaaS by itself. You have to sort of like erect that separately from your normal subscription pieces. So that's my favorite. This is like, I think the baseline right now for how people can get into it and immediately get value from a Web3 thing would be NFTs for funding and for community. You can almost skip your like a pre-seed round if you're wanting to do a startup. If you can find 1,000 people to mint your NFTs to get access to your product, and maybe you get a limited supply, there's only ever going to be 1,000 of these and their lifetime access. And then after that, everybody's going to pay a monthly fee, like a normal monthly fee or something. Give them incentive to come in early. And they also just fund your ability to get it going, right? To get it rolling. So that would be a limited lifetime deal and an early supporter community. That's what you receive out of that. But what's really cool about it, in my opinion, is the next two things, which is it's socially shareable and it's resellable. So these early adopters getting access to your product through this NFT, they don't have to hold on to it forever, right? If they become disinterested in the product you built 3 months later, they can actually sell that lifetime access pass to someone else and recoup part of their investment or even make money depending on how well you've executed on it, right? So it's a really cool concept. They get to basically kind of hedge their bet and bet on you as a founder. So this is the Bildr Studio Pass. There's some things in here that really make a difference to it. So one is you're gating access with the pass. So when you're thinking about NFTs for yourself or for your business, you're thinking of it in terms of gated access. And it might be gated access to the entire product, or it could be gated access to special features, or it could just be lifetime access versus a normal regular subscription kind of access. Having unique artwork is important here. If you don't have unique artwork, it kind of loses some of the luster. So taking some time and thinking about the art and thinking about how you want to present yourself to the world with the art is really important. The ability to be anonymous during this process is very important in Web3. And from a user perspective, I think one of the things that like we're kind of kicking back against in society is this concept of, Facebook and all the other social messaging or social platforms, they have all of our information, right? They know who we are, what we do, all those things. And so part of this is the idea of, is that really necessary for most businesses to operate? Like even at Bildr, do I really need to know your email address to communicate with you? I like the idea of having a Discord where it's inbound. If you want to communicate with the company, you come into our Discord voluntarily and we interact with you versus us sort of like just pushing information out to you. And we do still send emails at Bildr, right? And we probably always will because it's something that's going to occur forever. But just in concept, I like this idea of I don't have to know who you are. You can come in and use my service and get value out of it. And we can interact with each other on a voluntary basis where you're not getting spammed by the company. It's just a much better relationship between the business and the consumer. So we like it a lot. And then the fourth piece is this limited supply. So in general, especially when you're launching your first ones, you don't want it to be an unlimited supply. There needs to be some scarcity to it that says, thank you for being an early adopter of what we're doing. So you're getting something special and not everyone's going to receive this treatment. So later on, whenever you offer your regular access, it's going to be a different type of access for everyone else after the limited set is sold out. And so that's it for all the definitions and things. I can go into the demo, but I figured we could stop here and go into the chat. Are there any questions, Josh, that I can go through? Let me go open it up.
There's one that said, will Bildr allow for other wallets like Coinbase or Crypto.com soon?
Yeah, you actually already can. So right now the button says MetaMask on it, and we actually just need to change that because it really already works with every other wallet. So if you basically the way it works with most wallets is whenever you click the connect button, it's going to open whichever wallet is connected on that browser. So if they've got Coinbase wallet installed, it's just going to open Coinbase wallet. If they have MetaMask installed, it's just going to open MetaMask. So that will already work. And we actually just helped another user build, what is the one called? It's the Wallet Connect. Sorry, it's called Wallet Connect, where basically it's a mobile, it like kind of redirects you to mobile for it to do everything. They basically pitch it as a more secure way to do it. So you can already do those kind of things where literally any wallet is fine already. And yeah, we will get into the authentication in just a minute, connecting with the wallets and all that. Let's see, there was another question here. Produce legally binding contracts. Well, maybe you can expand on the legally binding contracts part of it. What do you mean by legally binding? Yeah, I mean, that would probably be outside of Bildr in terms of like the actual legality of it, right? But because it's going to be wrapped up probably in the NFT, I would think, right? So you can think more about Bildr as like the front end experience creation tool, right? Where you're building the ability for them to mint, for them to exchange, for them to buy and sell if you want to, or access gated content, that kind of thing. But I would think in that instance of what you're talking about there, if the NFT is like, say it is the deed to a house or something, like the NFT is the deed, then the transfer of that would actually be in the smart contract. It would be in the Solidity contract itself that says, did the requirements get met in order for the transfer to occur, right? Which is a lot of what a smart contract does. It says, did the person wanting to mint this provide the right amount of ETH, for instance, is one of the checks that it would do. But it might also do another check of, is it the wallet address that's supposed to be doing this? Or is it the right time of day? It can literally be any logic you'd like. And so I would think most of the legal part of it would be inside of the smart contract. And that would be, that's kind of outside the purview of Bildr, at least for the moment. But there are some tools out there that we can talk about that you can integrate into it. Cool. And maybe I'll just dive into the demo, because most of these questions are about Bildr. And so I'll just dive in and we can just take a look at different ways to use Bildr. So let's see, I'll switch over. Let me close the chat real quick. All right, so I'm just going to make a brand new project here. This is inside the Bildr Studio. I've already said, create a new project. You can start from regular templates. These are the Web3 templates down here that we've got so far. And we have a bunch more that are being made. But these are things like token gating, Airtable sites, doing allow lists, different mint sites. This is a really simple mint site. This is the one we'll use today. And notice this says connect with MetaMask first. We have to connect our wallet before we can do that, because it's going to confirm that we have a Bildr Studio Pass in order to access these. So this is an example of how I was saying, you can gate just certain parts of your product. So right now we have certain pieces of Bildr that are gated. You have to have a Studio Pass, but the rest of Bildr is just freemium. You just sign up and use it, right? So I'm going to connect here. It's going to check that I have. Oh, sorry, that's because I connected earlier, disconnected manually and never refreshed. Sorry, one sec. Let me do that all over again. It's what happens whenever you're doing the testing right before, right? Oh, maybe not. Let me disconnect. Yeah, it was just that. It was just because I had done it earlier. Didn't need to refresh. I needed to kill it in the wallet. So once you're connected, it checks to make sure that I've got the Studio Pass, and I do. So I'm just going to create a project from that simple NFT mint site. And this is a good place to start if you're wanting to learn how to or how certain interactions happen between Bildr actions and smart contracts. So this is a really simple mint site. It's totally customizable. So if I click on something like this image, I can go to properties and upload or change out the image to whatever I want on all these different things. And this one is a GIF that you can swap out. Just click in and change all the text to whatever you want it to be. And then there's different parts of it that you'll also customize using flows. And we kind of walk you through some of those pieces over here on the left. So first of all, you can preview this immediately. So if I just click preview here, I go into preview, you can see here's the actual mint site. I can connect my wallet, it'll pop it open. So all this stuff just comes out of the box. Now, when I try to actually mint something here, it's going to give me a message that I don't have a contract address because I haven't set up I haven't set this template up yet. I just basically turned it on, right? So if you go through all the steps here, you can swap out your social links. We walk you through how to do that. Linking to a terms of sale. This is something that's really important if you're wanting to do a mint. Make sure you have a terms of sale. So it's just like a terms of service for anything else. You need to be clear on what the user is going to get if they mint this pass, right? And if it's nothing, it's nothing. That's fine. Like some people just mint it and it's just art, right? They're not actually receiving anything. Others are minting for access to their products or something like that. So you want to make sure you have a terms of sale linked there. And then you'll enter your smart contract address. So we walk through how to do that, but I'll show you how that works. So When I'm on a page, like this page, I've got these different elements. And if I click on an element, you can see it selects it over here on the left. At the top, you'll see I also have this tab called flows. So if I click on flows, I can see all the flows of the home page. So I've got this home page selected. I'll zoom in a little bit. So I got this home page selected here, and these are all the flows of that home page. So in the case of setting up the smart contract, the way this template is set up, if I go into the page binding flow, there's an action here where it sets a variable for contract address, and then that gets used in all these other flows. That variable will get used. So a smart contract is what actually performs the mint functions inside of, like, to create NFTs. And so all you do is paste your smart contract address in here, and it's going to, everything else is handled for you. If you're interested in learning about how to make smart contracts, how to write smart contracts, or about there are other third parties that can actually do those without code as well. Like ThirdWeb is a really good one. There's also Manifold, where you can generate smart contracts for your needs. And then basically you can take that contract address and plug it into here, and then you've got your whole setup. And I don't have time to probably go through that during this, but we can like walk you through that. So if you join our Discord, there's a whole bunch of people in there who know how to do these things as well. So really, once you've got your Mint or your contract set up and you just paste it in here, everything else in this Mint site is already set up to work. So you can come in here and just kind of like swap everything out, copy paste in, and you're done. You're ready to go. In terms of the different actions that you can use, if I go in, I'm going to make a brand new flow, and I'll just call it the test flow. And if I type in Web3, you can just see all the different things that we've already got built out in here for doing mints and connecting with smart contracts. There's a good bit already in there. And then you can also do, if you go to MetaMask, if you type MetaMask, you can see the different ways that we do authentication. So let's look at, so this one here, the sign in with MetaMask, that there was a question on authentication in the chat earlier. There's two different MetaMask connections. There's one that is just connect and get the wallet ID, which is what this one here runs. Because in this case for a Mint, all we need is the wallet ID. But the sign in, what that does is actually signs the user in. So if I put this on here and connect it to this button, so I'll go to events and change this from connect to MetaMask to my test flow. That's going to run the exact same process. If I go here, except for it's going to now ask me to sign a message. So signing a message, what that means is that our backend is going to confirm that your browser session that currently clicked that button actually owns that wallet. So you can't spoof it. Then once it's in our backend, we generate a session and actually create a user for that wallet address that was just created. So if I go over here into users, maybe. Oh, I didn't set this project up, I think. Hang on just one sec. Sorry, one moment. Yeah, I think I have to go one step further in that to set this up. But basically what it does is it creates a user inside of the project, just as if you were signing up with an email address. So once you've got a user, now you can do all the normal authentication things. So like if you want to restrict access to data or restrict access to certain pages based on who's signed in, all of those kind of pieces just work out of the box at that point. So that's the Web 2.5 pieces that I was talking about at the beginning, where rather than trying to like go 0 to 100 to Web3, which is really not all the way possible just yet, we're kind of bridging that gap. So you can come in, let them connect with their wallet, sign in, and then once they're signed in, they can access the gated content that you've created. And one of the other templates that's in here, if I go to new project again, this template here, token gated Airtable, so this one has all of that built in as well. So you actually come in here, you sign, and you have an actual user, and then we're gating. In this case, we're gating an Airtable set up. So this has a whole set of lessons that you can go through to learn about how all that works. But basically when they connect and it checks to make sure you actually tell it what NFTs are required. And if they have those NFTs, then they get access to this Airtable form to fill out. And if they don't, then it just kicks them out and doesn't let them. It redirects them to the sign-in page or the homepage or whatever you set it up to be. So by having that full back and forth of creating sessions and doing all those pieces, you get true authentication, but you're doing it with wallets as opposed to email addresses and passwords and all those things. So, I mean, Bildr's a super deep tool. Like I can go in a million different directions here and talk for like 3 hours on Bildr itself. So rather than go down that path, are there any questions? I haven't checked the chat and go through some of those.
Yeah, so there's a few here. One came up just about the kind of accessing Bildr. So on the Bildr Studio Pass, 2 questions. So firstly, do they need to buy a Studio Pass in order to access those features, or is there another option?
So in order to access, let me go close the chat real quick. So some of these features require a pass and some don't. Okay, so when you come in to Bildr, if you type in Web3, and I'm already connected, but if you're not, like some of these more complicated ones like minting and these other pieces require a Studio Pass before you'll be able to add these into your project. And those project templates require a Studio Pass in order to have it. To mint a Studio Pass, you go to web3.bildr.com, which I can put in the chat here. Put it here. You can go there and you can mint the Studio Pass. So the Studio Pass is the one you would want to mint for that. The Holder Pass is a different set of things. This is for NFT collectors, like people who are buying and selling NFTs. And the Collection Pass is a whole other animal. It's for NFT collections who we collaborate with on all kinds of other things. Those are quite a bit more. They're 2 ETH a piece. If you look at the Studio Pass, I'll scroll down here and go to OpenSea. I saw someone asked about it on OpenSea. So the floor price on the Studio Pass is 0.2. So you could buy it from someone else for 0.2 ETH. So right now it would be cheaper to mint a new one, a new Studio Pass. So make sure to not get confused between the Holder Pass and the Studio Pass. The Studio Pass is the one that you'll need in order to access those features. And the cheapest way to get one right now is to mint one for sure. If you are going to mint one, make sure you can like toggle between, what you're wanting to do there and re-roll the art and make it look the way you want it to look with the colors and the things that you want before you mint. And yeah, it just makes it more fun. Hope that answers those questions. I think it does.
Someone else is asking, can they create a membership area with courses, etc., which is gated by NFT access?
Yes, so I don't have it set up in here, but let me show you. If I go to this area called URL routes and I'll make a new route. So I'll call this like, maybe this is courses or something, courses, and I'll just pick a page to be the page for it. So you would have an authenticated page, an unauthenticated page, and an authenticated page. And what you would say, and I'll just pick one here, but this would normally be like your authenticated page would be the courses, right? So I'll create that route, and you have this option here called custom claims. This gets a little more detailed, but custom claims basically allow you to, on the one side, whenever they sign up, we can check to see if that user has a certain NFT and add a custom claim to their user session if they do. And then this allows you to gate that. So let's say the NFT was the Bildr Studio Pass. You would have a claim called Studio Pass or something like that. And then on the other side of it, when they sign in, we go check. There's settings you set in another part of the actions where we check to see if they have the specific NFT you're looking for that you want them to have, or you can even do like, they need to have 2 of these and 1 of those, and they need to have, 50 of these cryptocurrency tokens or whatever. Like it can literally be anything you want. And then that's what provides them access to that route, which gives them access to that area. We're actually working with 2 partners right now to build out full content platforms for them. One of them is Rug Radio, which has already been announced, and I have another one that's not announced yet, where these are like, tens of thousands of people will be accessing their gated content in that exact way. So you can only access these certain areas if you have these certain NFTs, and it goes even beyond that. We're about to roll out data restrictions based on which NFTs you hold, and it's getting all built into the core so that we can accommodate all these different pieces. And the data restriction laws, when you create your project, you need to select a region, and you can also change the region. So this region here, right now we have 3 regions for you to choose from. I'm not actually going to do this. No, it's just the demo. It's fine. So you can choose United States, Europe, or Asia. And Europe will work with the GDPR rules so that you're in the EU hosting the data there. So if that's the concern, that's the one you're going to want to pick. That's actually why we specifically created these multiple regions. So this is your data region. So all the data will be stored in that region. It does cause latency if you have like lots and lots of data, right? If it's a huge data product and you're serving that data outside, we have solutions for that, but it would be more than this. We'd want to do some fancy caching and things like that, but it's usually not an issue whenever you're first starting up or building out your MVPs, that kind of thing. You don't really need to worry about it. So yeah, just come in here and select Europe. When you create your project in the beginning, you can also select it at the top right, and it should default for you to Europe. If you're in that region, it should default the region to the region you're physically in whenever you create the project. Let's see. So for mobile apps, we are not likely going to build wrappers around Bildr projects for mobile apps anytime soon, but we have seen a whole bunch of interest in some of the developer community that's in Bildr that may be creating those wrappers for everyone. We already have a bunch of like really advanced Bildr users who are creating things like adding their own plugins to the Bildr Studio and creating their own marketplaces and all kinds of things. So I think that's they'll probably beat us to it. I would expect that they'll beat us to it. And because really it'll end up at the end of the day, it's going to be a wrapper around the web apps that Bildr produces. And Lars, feel free to join the Discord for sure. You get a bunch of community members responding. Our whole team is in there. We have a bunch of people from the team who are active inside of that Discord and can answer questions all day long too. Yeah, and Heinz, this is probably our biggest challenge, right? I mean, Bildr is this crazy deep tool. So Heinz asked, it's a steep learning curve and the potential is huge. Like, how do you curve that? How do you deal with that? And so there's 2 ways primarily. One is educational materials, and the second is templates. Those 2 things together solve a ton of it. Being able to dissect things and come back. We're also working with, we've been putting out bounties. We have our first set of bounties that are being created right now. So if you go into our Discord, there's actually a channel called Bounties where every week or so we put another bounty out, and that comes with, basically we offer a payment for community members to build things like, one of them that's being built right now is an Airbnb clone with a full video documentation on how to build it from scratch. It's like, those are the ways that people typically come up to speed the fastest. And there is no marketplace yet to hire the Bildr devs, but you can go in our Discord. There is a request for help and a request for and the other way. So like people can offer themselves up, and we do have an experts program where there are a set of people in there who are already tagged as experts and who are also available for work. A bunch of them are contractors. Let's see. Oh, and sorry, Yash, I missed your question. Yes, it's based on Web3.js, and I'll probably stop to share for now. Yeah, it's Web3.js there, and also the server-side token checks that we do are running in a node serverless function that uses Web3.js to do those checks as well. There's no reason you can't use any library. There's several of them out there. And in Bildr, you can bring your own libraries, make your own JavaScript functions, and add your own actions as you wish. So there's really no limits to what can be used, but that's where we went to begin. And friend, yes, if you go, a lot of these questions like go into our Discord because there's a lot of this discussion already happening. One of our users, Web3 DevDoc, he's actually a professor of blockchain at University of Arkansas in the US. He has already started doing a bunch of those pieces, and there's nothing stopping Bildr from facilitating all chains. It's really just a matter of time. We just basically have to get all the pieces in place to do it. But there's nothing at the core level that's required. It's really just which libraries are you using, which chains are you calling, and different pieces like that. It's all top level stuff that doesn't require Bildr team to do anything. So like if you're a coder or a JavaScript developer that already knows these things, they can actually add all this stuff right now. There's nothing stopping it at all. Did we get through all the questions?
I think we did.
So
I've got a question as well, actually.
Yeah.
How are you finding people signing up to Bildr? Are they tending towards creating Web3 projects now more than Web2, or like how is that balance sitting at the moment, or you don't know?
It's all of it still, and we're about to do a big rebrand and focus more on Web3, but we're never losing the Web2 side of things because really Web3 is Web2. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still creating web apps, you still need authentication, you still need data, you still need APIs. All these things are still the same. These are really layers being added on top. And then in the future, you'll be able to like click publish and publish it to IPFS files instead of like static files that are decentralized versus using our hosting. So eventually it'll be publishable that way. And then after that, Bildr also is going fully decentralized. We're actually creating the underpinnings for Bildr itself to be decentralized. Because one of our goals is we think we should just remove platform risk. I mean, I don't have any need to lock you in. I don't want to lock you in. It's been part of our ethos from the beginning. We've always wanted to open source all of Bildr eventually. And right now, if you're an enterprise customer on Bildr, you can actually go ahead and take it and host it on your own servers. We just basically work a deal with each one independently. And eventually that's going to come for everyone. And then longer term than that, we want all of Bildr to be decentralized. So you're never going like, well, what if Bildr raises their prices next month? Or we just don't want any of that. And I think we found a model that allows us to open it up completely and basically hand over the keys to the community eventually, like the dream of Web3 is. We really want Bildr to become that itself.
There's another thing that you mentioned to me one time that I think just really interesting as well is like this idea of kind of running communities through tokenization and things. I wonder if you could just like briefly explain how that kind of thing can work.
Yeah. So we're we're working on a lot of pieces of that. So we haven't announced it yet, but there will be a build token in the future, and the build token will basically align incentives. So this is a utility token. It's not like a cryptocurrency that you invest in. It's meant as a way for you to access features of the product, for you to earn for doing things like helping other users or creating templates on the marketplace or things like that. You get rewarded in build token, and then you can use that build token to get other people's services or to pay for Bildr itself. So like eventually adding a new project will require build token in order to do it. And you can earn build token without ever having to put any fiat money in, right? Like you can just perform services and help other community members and get enough to run all your projects, right? So the goal is to create it to where the whole point of tokenomics, that's like the term is tokenomics. The whole point of it is to align incentives inside of the network. And so if we can align everyone's incentives between Bildr as a tool and the user base and the users between the users using a token, then we can create a system that's sort of like self-perpetuating, right? Where people want to come in and earn so that they can get the benefit of using it. And it's a really complex system to create. It's like you're creating an economy basically, and it has to be self-contained. So it's really complicated to do. There's a lot of legal steps, but we are like pioneering a lot of that. We've spent a lot of money already on attorneys to work with them to make sure that what we're doing doesn't violate like SEC rules and things like that. That's why I'm being very careful about like what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. It's not a financial instrument, right? It's a true utility token. And to do that right and do it legally, at least in the US, is pretty complicated. But we're hoping that what we kind of figure out and how to do it, we can show as the way to do it. What I want to show the world is that you can, rather than having a traditional SaaS, you can have a successful SaaS product that's completely Web3 and decentralized and still make money, right? Where it's not a speculative game. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's actually based on value derived from the community. But it's a really complicated set of steps to get there. So we're excited to show that off here pretty soon. We're close. Drew and I have been working on how to say it, what it all means, how it gets used, the mix of NFTs and the token together. It's a fun problem to try to solve for sure.
Mind blowing. Oh, there's one more question that popped in.
Yeah, I mean, IP is an issue for all startups, right? We have a couple of patents as well. We've been working, on our IP strategy for a really long time. Bildr's something that's been in the head of our team for a very long time, like 15 years. So we have a lot of intellectual property that's already out there. One of the really beautiful things about crypto and Web3 is the tendency to move towards open source, because usually patents are used defensively. Like most offensive uses of patents are sort of patent trolls, right? Or big companies really leveraging to each other for other reasons. Like if you wanted to buy a company and you knew you had a patent that they were infringing on, you could use that as leverage to get a better deal, or to force a deal, to force a sale, or to force a license agreement, something like that. Like that's usually the offensive mechanism. From a startup's perspective, IP is typically a defensive posturing thing. If you have some, you can like point your missiles at them when they point their missiles at you, kind of thing. But startups are not really interested in getting into IP wars. At least I'm not at all, right? So it's a tricky game, but the best you can do is have great attorneys, which we do, and go from there. There's really nothing else that you can do other than don't steal other people's code and have good attorneys. That's basically it. But it is coming. I agree with you.
Nice. Well, there's no more questions. There is one more question. Two more questions.
Kyle, let's do that in the Discord if you can. Maybe ask your question in the Discord, in Bildr's Discord, to get that all set up. Would be a better place to do it. Also, we do have office hours every Thursday at different times. The one today was 2 hours ago. And in those office hours, it's a fantastic place to ask tons of questions too, because we actually are like, okay, show us your screen, show us what you're trying to do, and we'll walk you through it in real time. Those usually last like an hour to an hour and a half. But that's a really great way to get a lot of info. But the Discord is the place to ask those kind of questions as well. You'll get really fast response times there. Thank you, Josh. And yeah, the main limitation for something like StepN, which I don't use it. I don't actually I have the app, but I never got an activation code or whatever. And then I just never went and messed with it. What's funny is I actually know some leaders of a sports league, and they were asking me, hey, how can we build, can you help us build step in for our sport, basically, is what they wanted to do. You can definitely do it if you want to do it. But the hard part of that, it's a normal app for the most part, but you're going to have all this, the tokenomic side of things. You need smart contracts. You need to think through all that. Like that's the part that's sort of like not known yet. And it would be, you're pioneering things over there. But from an app perspective, it's just a normal, they're doing a thing and did they achieve that goal? Did they do the thing? And if they did, then you'll probably have some database entry that's centralized for a moment that says, yes, they completed task A, whatever it is. If it's literally step in, how long did they run or whatever it is? But it could be any task that was completed. And so this is a concept called like learn to earn or work to earn or do a thing to earn a token is effectively what you're doing. And Lars, almost all tokens are pyramids of some sort, especially in the beginning. It's like, can you get out of the pyramid side of things fast enough, which is something we really want to avoid with Bildr. We're not attempting to do something that's like you have to constantly have more people coming in order to keep the value up or any of that. There is the only value of build token is inside of the Bildr ecosystem, period. You use it to do things inside of Bildr. Conceptually, it's like really hard to do it right. I think that's why so many people don't attempt to do it right. They just go, well, let's just launch the token and get liquidity and make money and not actually provide the value. And I think that's what's causing a lot of the negativity in the space is people not wanting to jump through the hoops to actually do it properly. So we're hoping that when we put out a tokenomics white paper that's based around a software as a service product, where there's already an existing product and we're layering tokenomics on, that can be a stark contrast to the idea of pyramid schemes, because it's not a pyramid at that point. The value is already inside of it based on the actual utility of the token inside of the ecosystem. So that's a different approach. Yeah, so Heinz, a lot of people do that. Like you'll have a Webflow website that you've already created, and then you want to make your app. And usually what they'll do is what we see a lot of is after they've built their app, they end up migrating their Webflow website to Bildr as well, because there are some benefits to having them on the same domain. But you can also just have like app.yourwebsite.com versus www.yourwebsite.com. So the www would go to, Webflow or, whatever website builder you want to use or something static. And then app dot would go to your Bildr site. The main difference in terms of Bubble, like the biggest differences are mainly philosophical. So in terms of like what you can create almost the same type of things with both systems. The Web3 things we're doing are a clear differentiator. You can do Web3 things with Bubble, but it's not the same as integrating it into your core, right? So like the way that we're integrating these things so that they can't be hacked on the front end. So it's a true token gating. Those kind of things you can't layer that on the top. You have to put that inside the core. In terms of the philosophical differences, the styling mechanics within Bubble are very non-conforming to web standards, is how I would put it. Bildr is completely conforming to web standards in almost every way. So there's a really straight path in Bildr, for instance, to learning. You see something on the screen, you go to styling and you look at the style classes, which is similar to like how Webflow treats it. You have style classes, you have style properties in those classes. And in Bildr, you can actually like flip over to the CSS view and read the code and edit the code and change it there, and it'll change the UI. You can also do the same thing of like just drop straight into the JavaScript function that runs the action that does a thing, and you can modify it. Like we expose all those things to you. So from a philosophical standpoint, we're much more like extensibility and openness is a key attribute of Bildr, right? We're not trying to obfuscate it. We're not trying to hide everything. We want it to be out in front of you. And we think it's beneficial for everyone to learn those concepts, to learn the right concepts. So a lot of skills that you learn in Bildr for like styling and for how actions work together, a lot of that transfers over to coding. Like if you ever went into wanting to actually like just write CSS manually, you'll have a lot of that knowledge already in there because the flow is exactly the same. The work is very similar. Having both on one domain. So like if you go to bildr.com, it's the same website, same project as the studio. And it's nice because I can do things like have, say it's like bildr.com/your profile, right? That kind of thing. And it's coming from within the same app as the website and as the full studio product. Right. So when you create your product now, they're sharing data easily without having APIs back and forth. It's all the same data collections. It's all the same users. It's all the same. So all those pieces, you can just do really nice things like have a sign-in button in the header directly on the homepage. You don't have to like redirect them to another page to sign in, things like that. It's definitely not required. And we see tons of people keep them separate. It's not a problem at all to keep them separate.
Hey, Mark, can I interject there a second?
Yeah. And this is Drew, by the way, on my team.
Yeah, sorry, everyone. I got tied up and I was so late, but I got like 10 minutes ago. But I think, Heinz, you meant more of like the same app. Like the back end is Bildr, the front end is Webflow in the same build, right? That's what I got from that question, which you actually could sort of maybe do, but like you wouldn't really want to do that because, all right, at least like I wouldn't want to do that, I guess, because Bildr's front end is very similar to Webflow. And then Bildr extends it with like the actions and the functions and more like the advanced stuff. So it's almost like Bildr is a combination of Webflow and Bubble in a way. I mean, we don't really like to say that because that could also be misleading, but it's conceptually like that. So I don't think it would actually make that much sense to do a front end in Webflow and then use Bildr. It would be much faster and easier just to use Bildr for the front end at that point. But what Mark was talking about is more like if you had a site in Webflow and you wanted to build an app, maybe like your marketing site is Webflow, your app site is Bildr. That's more of the setup that we actually see a lot of people do, and that seems to work for people. Like they're building their SaaS, but they need to get a site up quickly, so they pop something in Webflow or Softer or Card, even something simpler sometimes.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification, Drew. I think you were spot on. I missed that nuance there, an important nuance.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Drew. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. That was super interesting. What's the best way for people to get started with Bildr?
100% come into our Discord, and there's bildr.com/education where you can go through different tutorials and things to learn Bildr. And then inside of the studio as well, on the left side, there's a purple and white question mark that'll also take you to the same educational resources. But if you get stuck, you'll end up needing to come into the Discord as the best place to get answers real quickly. There's people of all walks in there. There's like super experts who are doing crazy things with Bildr. And then there's people who just started today and have never built anything on any platform before. So you kind of have all the different pieces. And looks like one more question from Rafal. I can't read it. Yeah, the Studio Pass is 0.16 ETH. So that's Ethereum. So right now, I don't know what ETH is at, like 1,800 or something times 0.16. So it's like $288 US or so for a Studio Pass that gives you lifetime access to Bildr Pro features. And the things that Studio Pass gets you, we're about to increase a bunch of the things that you're going to get out of that when we do this rebrand and launch some new things. You'll have even more benefits to it. But even at that, it's like, honestly, with ETH prices where they are right now, it's a crazy inexpensive deal for a lifetime access pass. But we're happy with it because we want people to get in and have that access and, build everything that they want to build. So that gets you full access to literally everything in the studio. Cool.
So this has been recorded. There's been a few questions about that. So we'll be sharing it next Wednesday in the No Code Founders newsletter. If you're not subscribed to that, you can subscribe to us at nocodefounders.com. So next Wednesday that'll be out. But once again, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Drew. And thank you to everyone for joining. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
See you.
Talk soon. Bye, y'all.